Well, hello again, everyone. It's a dark and cold night in the van tonight, and this video is not our usual upbeat sort of topic, but it is something that I think we need to start thinking about before time gets much further on. And really, it concerns what the future will be like for those of us trying to do motorhoming on a bit of a limited budget. Now, I'm already seeing quite a few little posts on Facebook and stories I'm hearing from people about folk who are having to give up their vans. Mainly in connection with the new environmental charges that are being imposed around the Manchester area. I had some quite sort of sad stories about people who've got older vans and perhaps travel into Manchester regularly to see relatives or to pick up children from partners and things, and who are going to have to change their vehicle. And people who live in Manchester and keep their vans at their sort of home want to travel out and are going to be hit by this charge and are considering getting rid of their vehicle, or at the very least having to store it elsewhere. And we did see this a few years back with the London congestion charges and the ultra low emission zone. I remember seeing quite a few posts and things from people who were getting rid of their older vans. And of course, we don't really know if those people have gone on to buy newer vans or have just had to give up altogether. Now, I've put the details of our van into the government website thing, which tells you about the congestion charges apart from the central London ones. And to take our van, for instance, into Bath will cost us £9 each day. Into Birmingham will be charged £8. Manchester, it actually says no charge, but that's because of a temporary exemption. And Portsmouth is also no charge. So that doesn't seem too desperate for us. We'll only ever be passing through these areas, and we're potentially looking at a tenner or so, which we could probably afford. But if you're going to be going backwards and forwards every time or every day through one of these zones, then you are going to suffer if you're a local. And lots of other councils do seem to be considering these zones. I read today that the Peak District, almost as a whole, is considering a congestion charge for visitors. Now, of course, you can avoid these charges if you buy yourself a nice new Euro 6 compliant motorhome or camper. But yeah, you need some funds to do that, I'm afraid. If, like us, you live in a fairly rural location, maybe quite a while before you're affected, the most you might have to shell out is the odd tenner here and there, which may not be too much of an obstacle for you. But also, of course, we have the ban on new diesel and petrol vehicle sales coming in 2030. Well, you might say that's just a ban on the sales of new vehicles. It won't affect us plodding around in our old vehicles. And on the face of it, that does seem to be true. On the other hand, I've been thinking about this and I'm wondering, how long will it be before people really stop buying petrol and diesel vehicles? They know this is coming up. And if there is a widespread adoption of electrical vehicles, or people feel that they don't want to be paying these various different congestion charges and low emission zone charges, then it's possible the take up of electric vehicles will be quite quick, and you do see a lot of them around now, don't you? You do see a lot of Teslas and things, Renault Zoes and all this sort of business whizzing around. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, there is a problem here. We have got to solve all this climate change business. But as more people adopt them, it may be less and less of a profitable thing to sell petrol and diesel. As I understand it, petrol stations make very little margin anyway. So maybe, you know, the cost of the petrol and diesel will go up as less people are buying it, make it a little bit harder to find. And obviously things like spares and servicing and that sort of thing may become more expensive as there's less and less real demand for it. But 2030, of course, that's ages away, isn't it? Well, we've been talking about this, it seems like for ages, but I remember it being stated as sort of 10 years away. Well, of course it's not, it's 8 years away now, it's 2022. So we started thinking about this in 2020, and they said, well, 10 years away. But 2 years of that already gone. And even so, 8 years is quite a long time, isn't it? Well, thinking about it, we've already had our van here 4 years, and it still feels like a pretty new thing to us. You know, still remember very easily back to the time before the van, the sort of holidays we used to have. So I don't really feel like, you know, it's been that long. So we've only got twice the time that we've already had in the van before we hit that 2030 date, where there'll be no more petrol and diesel sales. So from then on, you know, I think things are going to change pretty quick, even if they haven't done up till then. So what about buying yourself a nice electric camper or motorhome? Surely by then there'll be some around. Well, I think there is now, isn't there? I've seen a couple of little videos on electric motorhomes. The main one seems to be the Iridium E motorhome, which sells with a hefty price tag of £150,000. So that may be a bit beyond my reach. We stretched the budget a bit to spend £5,000 on our current van. So the hope might be that by then there'll be second-hand vans floating around that are electric. Because obviously some folks be buying these things now perhaps, although I've yet to see one on the road that I'm aware of. But even then, as we hit 2030, the oldest of those vans will only be 8-9 years old. And if you think what an 8-9-year-old motorhome costs now, for an equivalent thing, a full berth coach built, say, well, that's going to cost you at the moment £40,000 to £50,000 for a normal sort of motorhome. And you know, it's not going to get any cheaper for the electric ones, is it? So that's a big jump up in your budget. So if my thinking is right, then you know, there's going to be less people around wanting motorhome, and maybe this will affect caravans as well. Obviously towing caravans requires a little bit of power, although caravan, a little bit more optimistic about caravans really, because already I'm seeing electric cars towing caravans, and there are nice lightweight caravans that you can tow quite easily with cars. So maybe the future's brighter a bit for caravans. So I'm just wondering, you know, how some of these campsites are going to fare with perhaps a reduced number of vans on the road. But that's speculation really. Nobody knows how this is going to pan out. But what's for sure is the world is changing quite quickly. So come 10 years time, when perhaps I'll be looking to retire, and in the past I've imagined myself and Nikki travelling around in maybe not this motorhome, but maybe a second-hand motorhome, a reasonably priced sort of thing, that may not be possible, at least in the same sort of way. Who knows really what people will come up with to get round this. But yeah, the idea that I'll retire in 10-15 years time and be able to go on the type of motorhome holidays that I currently go on, or travels, is hard to sort of imagine, given what we're thinking about happening now. So poor us, blub blub blub, all that sort of thing. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to think like that when you think of the bigger picture and all the problems that some folk around the world are having already with climate change, flooding, storms, forest fires, all this sort of thing. So something clearly does have to be done. Is motorhoming in fact an incredibly environmentally unfriendly thing to do? Well, I don't think it is really, in comparison with other forms of holiday, you know, flying off to the other side of the world and this sort of thing. I mean, I love to fly off to the other side of the world. I've not done a great deal of it, but obviously we had our trip to Borneo, for instance. Absolutely fantastic, and wouldn't have missed it for the world. But you do start to feel just a little bit guilty these days, don't you, considering this sort of thing? So yeah, but that sort of thing doesn't seem to be getting more expensive in the same way that I think having a motorhome will do. So I don't know really. I do wonder quite where we're heading. So there's some disjointed, incoherent thoughts for you, really, from my fevered brain. What do you think? Do you think that there is going to be a future for people in older second-hand motorhomes to travel around? I mean, you know, what about the people that live in older vans at the moment? Will they be able to continue their lifestyle? I mean, we just holiday, but for some people it is the way they live, isn't it? So look, concerned for those kind of people. You know, what do you think the future holds for the sort of things that you and I enjoy doing? Yeah. Anyway, didn't mean to bring you all down. There is an optimistic side as well, of course. Perhaps, you know, the technologies will improve massively and we can all have lovely, cheap electric motorhomes with a massive range and not have to worry too much. Perhaps the hydrogen technology will take off and become incredibly cheap and we can all whiz round in hydrogen-powered vans. Or perhaps some other solution that nobody's yet thought of will come to the front. Who knows? But yeah, these are the sort of things that trouble me at the moment in the middle of the night. Yeah. Well, that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends. Give the like button a press. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see some more.